Late-night drives always left me feeling uneasy. The streets seemed unnaturally empty, the quiet stretched too far, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Even the smallest sounds, the tires scraping the asphalt, the soft hum of my engine, felt amplified, echoing through the darkness like a warning. I was 20, heading home just past midnight after a long, exhausting shift, when I first noticed the car behind me. At first, it didn't seem out of place. Just a pair of headlights lingering in my rearview mirror. Another late-night driver, going somewhere unknown. Nothing to worry about. But after a few turns, a quiet sense of unease started to creep in. Every turn I made, they made. Every lane change, every stop, they followed exactly. I slowed down slightly. So did they. I sped up. They stayed right there. Not close enough to feel aggressive, but not far enough to feel normal either. It was controlled, deliberate. That's when I knew it wasn't random. A knot tightened in my stomach. My grip on the steering wheel stiffened until my knuckles turned pale. I needed to be sure. Instead of heading straight home, I made a sudden turn onto a side street I didn't usually take. The headlights followed. Another turn. Still there. Another. Still there. I started weaving through back roads I barely knew, making quick turns, hoping they'd give up or lose interest. But they didn't. No matter what I did, the car stayed behind me. The fear started to settle in, heavy and real. Finally, I pulled into a gas station and parked directly under the harsh fluorescent lights. The brightness felt like the only safe place around. I tried to act normal, glancing at my phone, but my hands were slick with sweat. Across the street, the car stopped too. Engine idling. Headlights aimed straight at me. My heart started pounding harder, each beat echoing in my chest. I sat there for a moment, frozen, unable to breathe properly. Then panic took over. I started the car and pulled back onto the road, turning sharply, trying to lose them. But they followed. For nearly half an hour they stayed with me, through winding streets, empty highways, and long stretches of road where no one else was around. Every turn, every merge, they were still there. My chest tightened, my breathing became shallow and uneven. I thought about calling the police, but doubt crept in. What if I was overreacting? Then I remembered something my dad told me years ago. If you think someone's following you, never go home. Don't let them know where you live. Lose them first. Those words stuck in my mind. I couldn't take my usual route. If this person really was following me, I couldn't risk leading them straight to my apartment. So I changed direction and headed toward the highway, pressing harder on the gas. For a moment, I thought I might lose them there, in the open road. But when I checked the mirror, the headlights were still there, unmoving, relentless. I tried everything, switching lanes suddenly, speeding up, taking exits at the last second. Nothing worked. It felt like I was being hunted, like they were just waiting for me to slip up, to slow down, to make a mistake. My adrenaline surged, every instinct screaming at me to keep moving. And then, they were gone. 1 second the headlights were there, the next nothing, just darkness behind me, an empty road. But instead of relief, something worse settled in. What if they hadn't left? What if they had just turned off their lights? The thought sent a chill down my spine. I kept driving, faster now, my eyes flicking to the mirrors every few seconds, expecting those headlights to suddenly reappear. They didn't. But the sense of being followed never left me. Even when I finally made it home, the tension didn't ease. Every car that passed behind me made my chest tighten. Every pair of headlights in my mirror sent a jolt of panic through me. Years later, the memory still lingers, sharp and vivid. And sometimes, when I'm alone on a dark road, a single thought creeps in, whispering like a shadow in my mind. What if they never stopped following me? When I first moved into my own apartment, I assumed the hardest part would be the usual hassles, leaky faucets, creaking pipes, and the small frustrations that come with living in an old building. I never imagined that something far more disturbing was waiting for me. It was my first experience living completely alone, and despite its imperfections, I felt a sense of pride. The building was old and slightly worn down. Hallway lights flickered intermittently, and the neighbors argued loud enough that their voices seeped through the thin walls. The basement laundry room always smelled of mildew and damp concrete, but none of it bothered me. To me, it all felt like freedom. For the first few weeks, life seemed ordinary. I went to class, worked part-time, came home late, and slowly settled into a routine. That feeling of independence made the small apartment feel like my own private world. But that feeling didn't last. The first note appeared on a Tuesday evening. I had just come home from class, exhausted and ready to collapse on the couch. As I opened the door, I noticed a folded piece of paper lying on the floor just inside the entrance. At first, I assumed it was some kind of flyer slipped under the door. Maybe something from management. But when I picked it up and unfolded it, my stomach dropped. "You look pretty in that blue shirt today." I froze. That afternoon, I had been wearing a blue shirt, one of my favorites. For a moment, I just stood there in the doorway, staring at the message as my pulse pounded in my ears. I tried to brush it off. Maybe it was someone in the building. Maybe just a strange compliment. Harmless, I told myself. I crumpled the paper and threw it away. But the notes didn't stop. A few days later, another one appeared. "I like the way you tie your hair when you cook." My stomach tightened. That wasn't a guess. Whoever wrote it had seen me inside my apartment. I rushed to the windows and shut the blinds immediately. I checked every lock twice, suddenly aware of how thin the walls were, how exposed everything felt. A week later, another note showed up. "You shouldn't walk alone at night." The certainty in the message was what terrified me most. It didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like a report. Someone had been watching me. I took the notes to the landlord, my voice shaking as I explained everything. He barely looked at them before shrugging. "Probably someone with a crush," he said casually. "Don't worry about it." Easy for him to say. He didn't live alone in a dim apartment where the pipes groaned through the walls like something moving. He didn't lie awake at night, listening to every creak and shift in the building. The notes kept coming. "I can hear you singing sometimes. Don't stop. I love when you eat on the couch. You look comfortable there." Each message felt worse than the last. It felt like someone was standing just outside my life, watching every private moment. I started changing everything. The blinds stayed closed all the time. I left lights on late into the night and checked every closet before going to bed. I even slept with my phone in my hand, just in case. Then one night, things got worse. I came home from work, exhausted and starving. As soon as I stepped inside, I saw something on the floor again. But this time, it wasn't a note. It was a Polaroid. My hands were already shaking before I picked it up. The picture was of me, sitting on my bed. It had clearly been taken through the window. Along the edges, I could see the faint reflection of the glass. My breath caught in my throat. Whoever had been leaving the notes hadn't just been outside my door. They had been right outside my window. That night, I shoved a chair under the doorknob and hid under my blanket. Barely breathing, the apartment creaked and popped as the pipes shifted, but every sound made my heart race. Then, sometime around 3 in the morning, I heard it. A soft, scraping sound against the door. I froze. Slowly, I reached down and pulled the paper toward me with trembling fingers. Another note. "Stop locking your windows. I missed the view." It felt like ice running down my spine. That meant he had tried them. He had been close enough to touch the windows, checking if they would open. I didn't sleep for the rest of the night. Every small noise, the hum of the refrigerator, the shifting pipes, made me jump. My eyes stayed locked on the door, half expecting the handle to start turning. By morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I shoved clothes into a bag without bothering to fold them, grabbed my laptop and stuffed in whatever else I could carry. I didn't even stop for food. I just needed to get out. I broke my lease, lost my deposit, and left half of my belongings behind. None of it mattered, as long as I was gone. But sometimes, late at night, a thought creeps back in. I wonder if he watched me pack, if he stood somewhere nearby, quietly observing as I left. Because the most terrifying part isn't that someone was watching me back then, it's the idea that maybe he never stopped. I used to think the hardest part of working a night shift was inside the diner, the greasy floors, the tired, half-asleep customers, and the constant smell of burnt oil. I was wrong. The real fear didn't start until I stepped outside. I was 19 at the time, working nights at a small diner on the edge of town. It wasn't glamorous, long hours, stained uniforms, and customers who barely looked awake. But it gave me something I valued: independence. I could pay my own bills and take care of myself. My mom always said she was proud, but she'd never had to wait for a bus alone in the dead of night. After closing, the town felt like a completely different place. Streets emptied out, shop windows went dark, and the silence stretched too far, like something was off. The walk to the bus stop only took a few minutes, but after midnight, it always felt longer. The first time I noticed him, the rain had just stopped. The ground shimmered under the streetlights, and the air carried that damp, heavy smell of wet pavement. My backpack felt heavier than usual as I made my way toward the bus stop. That's when I saw him. He was already there, standing inside the shelter. A man, maybe mid-40s, tall. His hair was slicked back, catching the glow of the streetlight. His jacket was still damp, clinging tightly to his shoulders. He leaned against the glass like he'd been waiting for a long time. But he wasn't doing anything. No phone, no cigarette, no distraction. Just standing there. The moment I stepped under the shelter, his eyes locked onto mine. Most people glance away, even if just out of habit. He didn't. His stare stayed fixed, unblinking, like he was studying me. I sat down on the cold metal bench and pulled out my phone, pretending to scroll. Every few seconds, though, I looked up. He was still staring. A knot formed in my stomach. My hands started to feel clammy against the phone. The bus was late, like it always was. Each minute dragged longer than the last. I listened to water dripping from the shelter roof, watched the occasional car pass, and tried to convince myself it didn't mean anything. Just a man waiting for the bus. Just coincidence. Finally, the bus arrived, brakes screeching as it pulled up. Relief hit me instantly as the doors opened. I stepped on quickly and took a seat right behind the driver, exactly where my mom always told me to sit at night. For a second, I felt safe. Then I heard him step on behind me. I kept my eyes forward as he paid and walked down the aisle. There were plenty of empty seats, but he chose the one directly across from me. I turned toward the window, watching the streetlights blur across the glass, but I could feel it. His eyes. Every now and then I caught his reflection. His head tilted slightly, just enough to keep me in view. It felt like he was memorizing my face. Stop after stop passed. No one got on. The bus felt too quiet, like the silence was closing in. Then the thought hit me. My stop was near the end of the line. If he stayed on until then, it wouldn't be a coincidence anymore. When the bus finally stopped at my street, I stood up quickly. So did he. My heart pounded as I stepped off. The doors shut behind me, and the bus drove away, leaving me alone in the dark. Most of the houses were blacked out, blinds drawn tight. The only light came from flickering TVs behind thin curtains. I forced myself to walk. Not run. Running would make it worse. But I could hear him, footsteps behind me. Slow, steady, not even trying to be quiet. He wanted me to hear him. My fingers tightened around my keys, wedging them between my knuckles like a weapon. By the time I reached my apartment building, my hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped them. The lock stuck, like it always did. The key scraped uselessly as panic surged through me. Behind me, his footsteps were getting closer. Then finally, the key turned. I rushed inside, slammed the door, and locked it. Trembling, I pressed my eye to the peephole. He was there, just outside, only inches from the door. His eyes fixed on it, a faint, unsettling smile curling across his face. He didn't knock. He didn't speak. After what felt like an eternity, he finally turned and walked away. I didn't get a wink of sleep that night, but the very next evening, when I arrived at the bus stop after work, he was already there. And this time, he slowly lifted his hand and waved.